you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to LaFleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TV. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Good evening, everyone. Monday, October 7, the Montreal Canadiens open their 2024-2025 regular season in less than 48 hours from now when they host the Toronto Maple Leafs on Wednesday night. The following night, the Canadiens will be in Boston, where they visit the Bruins. And then a couple of nights after that, the Canadiens will be back in Montreal, where they play host to the Ottawa Senators. It's going to be 2 games and 2 nights, travel included. It's going to be 3 games and 4 nights to start the season for the Montreal Canadiens. Considering the way things went in the preseason, where it was not an overly convincing preseason, I don't know if being so busy early on with 3 games and 4 nights is a good thing. With the power play being 0 for 30, and I don't remember when was the last time the Canadiens had a power play that was 0 for 30 in the preseason, I don't know if 3 games and 4 nights actually is a good thing. But then again, I guess we could all look at the bright side. It's preseason. It doesn't mean anything. You don't lose points. You don't gain points. And just because you don't score on the power play in the preseason or you don't play really, really well doesn't mean that you can't do it in the regular season. Maybe they're just saving themselves. Anyway, there's 2 schools of thought. You talk to some former NHLers, you talk to some former coaches, they'll tell you that they think that the training camp is important to prepare for the season. And you have others who say, you know what, the players will turn it on when the season starts. One guy who always has it turned on, the button is always on. Eric Engels, Sportsnet.ca and Sportsnet. How you doing, bud?
I think you're already on fire, too. You have a lot more
No, I'm not on fire. I'm not on fire, but I'm warming up. As you can see, I'm warming up. See, there we go. I'm warming up a little bit. It's been a busy day today. It's been a busy day, but I'm excited. And the regular season is here. It's right around the corner. So let me start by this. Let's bring up what the Montreal Canadiens announced off of their Twitter handle earlier this morning. And here you have it. The Canadiens have sent down Jakub Dobeš, Adam Engstrom, Logan Mailloux, and Joshua Roy to the Laval Rocket. That was sent out at 10:42 a.m. earlier today. We had an idea because we had read on Twitter. I don't know if you had wrote about it, but I know I had come across Arpin's tweet that on the Canadiens roster on the media site, well, there are 23 players that were there, and Joshua Roy was not. So then that's when everyone really started to talk about it. And then, what had to be confirmed was actually confirmed a couple of minutes later. So, were you surprised by anything?
No, I wasn't. Actually, yeah, like we all went about this in a different way. Arpin showed up, looked at the media site. I was there early. I saw Heineman and Kapanen get on the ice with 2 goalies and deducing that Dobeš wasn't there. And then Heineman and Kapanen were there. And then all of a sudden, Alex Barboulet was on the ice. We knew he would be there because he wasn't on waivers yesterday. The deduction was pretty clear that Joshua Roy wasn't going to be there. And I'm not surprised. And you and I had a conversation last week about this. You said you didn't like Roy's camp. I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was rather pedestrian to that point. But then Saturday happened. And that was a rough game for him. And he played himself into a conversation that I don't think anybody would have thought he would have been in at the beginning of this camp, right? You would come to me 3 weeks ago and be like, where's Joshua Roy going to be in this lineup? I'm going to be able to, well, somewhere in the top 9, and I think he'll have a chance to be auditioned in the top 6, and we'll see where it goes. But there would have been any discussion point over the idea that he could be in a race with Heineman and Barboulet and Kapanen for a job. Like, that never would have come up. And you know what? I look at it this way. Some players at certain points in their careers, usually when they are around the age of Joshua Waugh, 21 years old, and they've spent a year in the National Hockey League, or at least part of a year in the National Hockey League, sometimes they need a kick in the ass. And he got one today. Like, and I'm not saying that Joshua Waugh has a bad attitude and Joshua Waugh didn't do the things he needed to do to prepare for this training camp. He spent the entire summer in Montreal with Montreal staff, working hard, trying to make himself in the best possible position to make good on the promise he had shown already last year. But for whatever reason, it just didn't seem to be the type of urgency that not only he wasn't able to find that, the other players he was in a competition with did. And that's why he is where he is right now, and they are where they are right now.
Yeah.
I'll say this, Tony. Nothing is permanent. Everybody's looking at this decision, and they're wondering, oh, that could be it for Joshua Waugh. They're looking at Lane Hutson starting on the second unit of the power play, and it's bedlam. Like, nothing is permanent. This is a daily situation that will be monitored throughout the season. In fact, you brought up the Canadiens playing 3 games in 4 nights. You think they're going to go through those 3 games unless they win the first 2 with the same exact lineup?
I would doubt it.
So, and even if they win on Wednesday night and go into Boston on Thursday, I would think both goaltenders are playing. There's going to be changes throughout the season. There's going to be changes to the lines. There's going to be changes to who plays. There's going to be changes to who comes up and goes down to Laval. That is how you manage a competition and get the best out of what you have at your disposal.
Perfect. But I'll say this, and I think Joshua Roy approached the training camp not wanting to lose his spot instead of trying to go out there and actually win it. That was very disappointing. Yoel Armia was fantastic last year, the last 3 months. We know that. But Armia has been in the National Hockey League, I don't know, about a good 10 years. And he's always struggled with consistency. And Josh Anderson's been in the National Hockey League for about 7 years. He's always struggled with consistency. And we've come to expect that from those 2 players, very unfortunately. That's just the way it is. Some players struggle with consistency, some do not. Joshua Roy, for him to not approach this camp and not want to go through the boards, and who approached this camp like he basically took it for granted, was extremely disappointing. Now, this is a big wake-up call. It's a big wake-up call. Hopefully, it's a big wake-up call for him, and I agree with you. This doesn't change the fact that Joshua Roy can probably be recalled somewhere in the next month here and maybe never go down again. And I hope he has that kind of reaction. But, disappointed. He got outplayed by the other guys. He really did. And, I'm happy the Canadiens took the decision that they took because it was the fair decision to take. Now, I also think it was convenient or it helped and it weighed in the balance the fact that he could have been sent down. He didn't have to clear waivers because, for example, I'm going to give you Primo. I didn't think Primo had a great camp. And I think Dobish had a better camp. Mind you, the sample was not very big. But if Primo didn't have to clear waivers in which he would get picked up, I mean, the Canadiens made that clear to us last year. I think he probably too could have been in trouble, right? But because of his contract situation, he's not. But anyway, there you have it. I mean, I'm happy for Kapanen that he made the team, but there's one thing that happens not only with the Canadiens, and I'm not going to say it upsets me, but because it happens with every team, it seems. Veterans often get the benefit of the doubt. Like, I have a feeling that it didn't matter really who was playing whichever, that Armia was going to start on the second line. Like, I had that feeling when Liney went down with the injury. And, you talked about Michael Matheson. Everyone loves Michael Matheson. I never met anyone who didn't like Michael Matheson. 62 points last year. But all things being equal, if you put weight in the preseason, Lane Hutson should start. Like, I know you said nothing is permanent. Things can change. But Lane Hutson should start. Should he not?
Should start on the first unit of the power play?
You don't think so?
I mean, I'm not going to argue against the idea that he could be successful there. But based on the preseason, is that what we're basing it on for Mike Matheson?
Based on the way both of them run a power play.
Mike Matheson had 62 points last year.
I know that. You still?
How many of them were on the power play?
Probably about 15 or 16, I think.
How
Maybe
about 28?
28. Okay, that's a good number.
Where does 28 rank in the NHL among power play point producers?
I would think it's high.
33rd.
Okay.
You know who had 1 point more than Mike Matheson on the power play last year?
Okay.
Austin Matthews.
All right.
Everybody needs to chill out with this, honestly. Like,
okay.
Lane Hutson.
Listen, that's pretty good company. My eyes tell me that Lane Hutson will quarterback a Canadiens power play better than Mike Matheson, and I'm the president of the Mike Matheson fan club, by the way.
And he probably will for 15 years and running, but let him walk before he can run. Let him get into the NHL and actually run a power play for the first time in his life before you anoint him the first unit quarterback. Let the guys who are together on the first unit, which should be a pretty strong unit regardless of what they showed in the preseason, with Kirby Doc and Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield and Mike Matheson and Juraj Slafkovsky, produce some chemistry between each other before you attempt to rip it apart and just bring Hutson into that mix. This idea that he's being wasted is overblown kind of fan fodder, and I get it. I know what the promise of the player is, and if you're the president of the Mike Matheson fan club,
yeah,
I can tell you I'm right on board with everybody in terms of what
there's another stat though too. I mean, the Canadiens had the 27th ranked power play in the National Hockey League last year.
I'm right on board with everybody.
Yeah,
in terms of how they feel about Lane Hutson, what his promise is, and what his future is as an elite power play quarterback. Okay.
Yeah,
but like nothing is permanent. Like,
no, but I understand.
We're going into game one here. We're going into game one.
But they've had a terrible power play for I don't know how many years. Like, I mean, everything you said, all those points, that's true. They were 27th ranked power play last year. They were 31 the year before that.
Yeah.
They're 0 for 30 in preseason.
They didn't have 2 units last year. And people would argue that they don't really have 2 units this year now that Line is hurt. But if people believe that Lane Hutson is as good as he's supposed to be on the power play, then he could end up making a lot of players around him better on that second unit. If you look at the amount of power play goals the Canadiens scored last year, 98% of them were scored by a first unit comprised of players that were exactly there. The only difference was that Kirby Doc wasn't there and Sean Monahan was there. I think Kirby Doc has the ability to be just as effective as Sean Monahan on the first power play unit. There was a point where they were so hot that for a 20 or so game sample, they were top 7, top 8 in the league. But you can't survive an entire season with just one unit. And that's my point. If everybody believes that Lane Hutson is as good as he promises to be on the power play, the idea that he's completely wasted by not playing on the first unit is taking credit away from how good of a player he can be in that position on the second unit. And if they have some balance, then that'll help the power play.
Yeah, I understand, but I also want Lane Hutson to be able to play with guys where when he's going to pass it to them, they're going to be able to do something with it.
He's going to. He might not in game one, but he's going to. And he's going to play with those players at 5-on-5, and he's going to walk before he's sprinting in the NHL, anointed as the first power play unit quarterback over a guy who had 28 points last year and was 33rd in the league in power play scoring. I think Matheson has earned the benefit of the doubt that people should not be so reactionary. I understand the Lane Hutson campaign is through the roof right now, and I'm among the people who have said this kid is starting off as a star in the National Hockey League. This kid is on his way to superstardom. This kid will be in the race for the Calder Trophy if he doesn't win it outright. I believe in this player. I believe he is an elite player in the making, and he already has elite elements of his game. But, let's see what happens. Marty was right about one thing he said today. The judgment starts now. It's certainly not based. He had a funny line about the whole, we didn't show anything. I'm happy we didn't show anything on the power play in preseason. But he was right that if they had gone 30%, we would all be saying, yeah, well, let's see what happens when the real games start and they're not playing against American Hockey League talent.
Mike Matheson has been in the National Hockey League for 8 years. Last year, he had his career year, 62 points, and you talked about the amount of points that he had on the power play. The year before that, he had 34 points. The year before that, he had 31. The year before that, he had 16. The year before that, he had 20. The year before that, he had 27 and 27 and 17. And it's not to say that because he had by far the best year of his career last year that he can't do it again. But the way he exploded on the power play, I'm just saying that I think that Lane Hutson can explode on that power play too. You're saying let him walk before he runs. And I'm saying I think he could run already.
I agree with you. On that. But I also think like bringing up Mike Matheson's history, which over which he was not in the same role that he was in with the Canadiens last year, is kind of irrelevant.
They could probably both play in the power play first unit. You don't have to go with 4 forwards and 1 D.
I would love to see it happen. I'm a believer in that personally, but believe it or not, there was only one team in the league last year that regularly employed 2 defensemen on their first unit of the power play for at least a fair portion of the season. That was Vancouver. They had Hronik and Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
No other team was doing that.
Yeah, not even Colorado, because they had Makar and they had Devin Taves, but I think it was Devin Taves was on the second unit. Yeah,
they had Madsen who couldn't shoot the puck. Look, all I'm saying is, I'm saying 2 things. One is that we're going to see Lane Hutson featured with prominent power play players, probably running that first unit for years to come, and probably for a portion of this season too. But let's see what happens at the start here before everybody freaks out about it.
Listen, I'm not going to get into an argument over Mike Matheson. I mean, I like him. And, if he's not on the first unit, he'll be on the second. And Hudson's going to start on the second. It's just I just find a lot of NHL coaches, they have this hierarchy thing and they have this veteran thing. And the veterans.
I want to talk about that too, though.
Get the benefit of the doubt right all the time,
You brought that up. And the first name out of your mouth was Armia.
Mm-hmm.
Do people forget what happened with Armia last year? He was waived.
Yeah.
Mr. Benefit of the Doubt got waived.
Yeah, sent to Laval a couple times.
Sent to the American Hockey League.
Yeah.
He was humbled, and he came back.
Yeah.
And if you watched his camp objectively, he had a really strong one this year. Like a really strong one where the urgency was there, where he wasn't just going through the motions, where I think he only took 1 penalty, but I'd have to look it up. Like,
I don't know if anyone really had a strong camp, by the way, but okay.
Well, I think he had a good one. And if you look at the decisions that were made in general here,
what do you think of Josh Anderson's camp?
I like Josh Anderson's camp a year ago, and I like Josh Anderson's camp now. But I'm reserving judgment on Josh Anderson until we see him play games that matter. Because when we did last year,
you like this camp again this year?
I didn't dislike it. I understand he missed the net with a couple of opportunities in Saturday's game, but I wasn't looking at him like saying, "Uh-oh, this is going down the same path it was last year." I think his attitude is in the right place. I think his intentions are in the right place. I think his feet are moving well. I think he's going to be able to create some good opportunities.
His attitude's in the right place. Eric Pyre stuck out his knee on Liney, and Anderson did nothing.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, you don't think that bothers the players, Eric? Eric, you don't think that bothers the players?
Did he fight later in that game?
Yeah, he fought when it didn't mean anything. Okay. It was too late, Eric. You think it doesn't bother Arbor Jacki that Anderson didn't respond right away? You don't think so?
I don't know. You should ask George Laraque. If you guys want to stir up this controversy, the two of you go for it. I don't buy into this bullshit.
It's a controversy if it's not real, Eric. And if you don't know it doesn't mean it's bullshit, Eric. It could be true.
Okay. Well, I saw Anderson fight later in that game. I don't.
Yeah, I saw him fight later.
People pick their spots when things happen on the ice. I don't know.
You're supposed to react right away, Eric. You're supposed to react right away. Listen, I know you're.
What are we worried about right now with Josh Anderson? Are we worried about that, or are we worried about whether or not he's going to fill the net with pucks?
Well, I'm worried about both those things. As a teammate who's a big boy on a team that has a lot of players that do lack size, I need this guy to step up and have his teammates back. Okay, I do, and not when the game's over and it didn't mean anything. Well, yeah. I wanted the immediate response. That's what the pack mentality that Marty St. Louis is looking for is.
So when Arbor responded immediately and got himself thrown out of the game,
Arbor had to respond because nobody responded immediately. Okay. When Arbor responded to Paré, he had to respond because Anderson was on the ice and didn't do anything.
But you might not have said it, but 95% 4% of the fan base started talking about how it was the wrong timing and he got himself thrown out of the game and he went about it the wrong way and this and that. I don't honestly, like, I see the Canadiens as a team that stick up for each other. I think Josh Anderson's a part of that. I don't want to pick out one specific instance where he ended up fighting in the game because he was sticking up for his teammates. And ultimately, if you're going to ask me about Josh Anderson's camp, it certainly isn't about what he's doing with his hands to throw punches. It's going to be about what he does to fill the net.
I think he's shortchanged the Canadiens for a couple of seasons now. That's what I think.
Well, then he owes them.
Well, Maison, he owes them?
He owes
As
them.
they say, Maison, he owes them? Okay, we have a couple of clips. By the way, the Sick Podcast is brought. That was good, by the way, you and I. The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America. They are driven to be different, and also brought to you in part by Bittt at Tibi, who launched their new Ultra Lager, refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the cool fall days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and it's ultra refreshing. All right, okay. Earlier today, the Montreal Canadiens had their media availability, of course, and several players talked, one of which was Lane Hutson, our favorite, who talked about the challenges of an 82-game schedule. Let's hear from him.
The 82-game schedule, is that one of the biggest challenge that you're going to face this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard. It's a lot of hockey, but, it's exciting. You want to play games, and you want to play, even more than 82, obviously, so.
How does it feel to be paired with David as to start out the season with this?
Yeah, I mean, he's a rock back there, so it's pretty easy to play with him. I'm excited to see what we can do.
All right, so there you have it. The 82 games, we know it could be a challenge, especially for a young player, a rookie in the National Hockey League. Pierre Maguire has brought up the example of Leo Carlson and the Anaheim Ducks on a couple of occasions, has talked about load management. I don't know how many games it was that he skipped last year, but it was somewhere in the mid-20s, I think. Is that something that you see happening for Lane Hutson?
Nope. I don't see a reason for it, and I understand he's coming out of the NCAA, but I don't think he's going to need that type of treatment. Lane Hutson, he's not exactly lacking energy. He's got a motor that runs very high and hard at all times, and I don't know, man. There's so much about this kid that it's impossible not to be impressed with him, both on the ice and off the ice. He seems very cool. He seems very composed. He's a calm dude. He understands the challenges that are in front of him. He is not taking anything for granted. He knows that there's certain things that he's going to have to learn in terms of tendencies of other players and what he can get away with on the ice. He knows that he's going to have to treat himself extremely well off the ice to ensure that he has that energy through an 82-game schedule. He's been preparing for his entire life. And I don't think he's going to fail the test. I think he's going to pass it with flying colors. And I don't expect there to be any type of need to manage his load, quote unquote. And I don't want that to be seen as a contradiction to what I was saying before about letting him walk before he can run in terms of anointing him the first power play unit quarterback. If Marty decided tomorrow that he wanted to make that change and say, Lane, we love what you're doing and we're just going to throw you on the first unit of the power play, it's not like I'd be arguing against it. I just don't think it's the end of the world if he's not there to start. He's knowing how much I believe in the player. He's going to work his way there.
All right. Marty had a chance. He actually talked about Lane Hutson, but unfortunately we couldn't get the audio clip, but we were able to get the quote, which we found on social media. If we can bring it up here. Here we go. So far, his size in regards to Lane Hutson hasn't made me think he can't defend. I think he plays with a tremendous amount of pace. He's got his mental pace, but his feet are quick. He's able to close, and he reads the game really well. He's not going to defend the same as Caden Gooley. So far, what he's shown me is that he can take care of that part of the job. We're not worried about what he can do offensively and drive possession. We're going to expect him to do the things he needs to do defensively. Marty St. Louis. I want to keep this up here for a second because like many St. Louis answers, I think this one is an amazing answer. There are some who worry about Lane Hutson's ability to defend. And he says he's not going to defend the same as a goalie. But so far, what he's shown me is that he can take care of that part of the job. And then he talks about he's got his mental pace, but his feet are quick. This is a great quote. We're not worried about what he can do offensively and driving possession because obviously he knows he can do that. But obviously, Lane Hutson convinced Marty St. Louis.
Well, I think he should have convinced anybody that's watched him. I mean, this idea that he won't be able to defend in the National Hockey League is the same type of thing they said about Quinn Hughes and any other undersized defenseman that's ever come before both these players. I'm not saying Quinn Hughes and Lane Hutson are the same player. In fact, they do things quite a different way. Quinn Hughes is one of the smoothest skaters in the National Hockey League, and I think we can all agree that watching Hutson, I don't know if smooth is a way we would describe his skating style. It doesn't mean he's not fast. It doesn't mean he's not quick. What I see when I watch him defend is a player that really understands the angles of the game. He knows how to angle players off, push them into uncomfortable space, use his stick to his advantage. I think he's very creative about how he closes space and has to be at his size at 5'9", 162 pounds.
I see a player, if I can, Eric, I see a player that when he's on the ice, he has the puck most of the time, or his team has the puck most of the time. I see a player who wants the puck. I see a player who demands the puck. I see a player who has got confidence with the puck. And when he doesn't have the puck, I see a tremendous sense of anticipation to actually break up plays and get that puck back. So, if you're going to say to me, is he a defensive liability? I got to tell you that his offensive game is going to be better than his defensive game. But I'm going to tell you that he's not going to be on his defensive game very much because a lot of it's going to be oriented around his offensive game.
Yeah, and you're bringing up a good point because I'm sure it's an old cliche, but best defense is good offense. Best offense is good defense. Excuse me. This player is going to be fine. He's going to get beat up in the corner sometimes. He's going to get beat up in front of the net sometimes. The thing he's also shown is he's going to get up. He's going to get up and keep going. So I don't know. I really don't have any concerns about him in that department. I think pairing him with David Savard is great. I think if he ends up on a pair with Caden Gooley on the left, and Gooley is on the left side, and Hutson ends up on the right at some point, I think that could be great too if the Canadiens need to diversify what they've got going on.
You think that could happen, eh? You think Gooley could possibly go back to the left side?
I do. And a big part of the reason is Hutson was tried on the right side and didn't look even remotely out of place there. I'm not saying that you jump him in an ideal world, both of them are playing the left side, right? Which is but the idea that at some point or another, Mike Matheson could end up on a pair with David Savard for a few games, or they need to switch things up. You just like it forward where you have to make line changes, you have to be able to diversify your picture on the blue line. And one of the ways to get Gooley back on the left side is to pair him with Hutson. And if you look at the way both those players play the game, they complement each other for the same reasons that David Savard and Lane Hutson complement each other. Gooley is an extremely reliable defensive player who does the hard work in the corners and in front of the net, is willing to sacrifice his body, and is willing to support his D partner who ends up high in the rush quite a bit, like Matheson does. So I think, it's starting the way it is for a reason, right? Like Gooley and Matheson are a good pair. They're both the best skating defensemen on the Canadiens. So you get them in those premium matchups against teams like the Leafs, the Oilers. It makes sense. If you get on the road and you want to diversify the pairs a little bit, I'm not saying it's going to happen anytime soon, but don't be surprised if it happens that those two end up on a pair together at some point or another.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because obviously on the right side, the Montreal Canadiens have David Savard. They have Gooley, who moved over from the left side. And they got Justin Barron, Reinbacher, who can play that position, had surgery, and he's out for 5 months. Logan Mailloux was sent down. He's another right-handed defenseman. I have the feeling that Gooley's going to play the off side of defense the entire season. But you know what? I wouldn't mind seeing him back at the left side, but there's just so many players on the left side. Then again, injuries are a part of the game, and Lord knows the Canadiens have had their share over the last 3 years, so we'll see what happens.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I know how people interpreted Logan Mayou's camp, okay?
Yeah.
And I think there's some important context involved there that Logan Mayou was trying to show that he doesn't have to, quote unquote, stand out to be an effective defenseman. That was kind of what he needed to show, but there was a balance to it, and maybe he got caught a little bit on the hesitant side or tentative side.
Yes.
He did not want to expose himself and make those types of mistakes that he knows would have led to him being cut maybe a bit earlier in this camp.
Yes.
Now, with all that context considered,
yes,
what do you think Logan Mayou is going to look like after 30 games in the American Hockey League, where his confidence is likely to soar a little bit?
I think he's going to look a lot better than if he wouldn't have played those 30 games in the American Hockey League. A lot of people forget that Logan Mayou, because of the suspension and because of COVID, he had a couple of shortened seasons. He played 1 year in the Go OHL, and he had a shortened season with the London Knights. Logan Mayou, you're supposed to have 4 years of junior hockey before you either make the jump to the National Hockey League or you play in the American Hockey League. Logan Mayou has had a couple of very important development years taken away from him. So I don't think Logan Mayou had a terrible camp. I know exactly what he was trying to do, show that he can play a simple game. But you talked about the whole balance thing. I think where he got caught once again was he didn't play like a player who wanted to go out there and win his spot.
Yeah, I think. Let me put that another way, because I know what you're trying to say. Because I don't think it's the same thing as like what Joshua Watt did in this camp, where he was clearly trying to not lose his spot, or at least felt that he'd be given some leeway to not lose it. I think it was more like he got a little too caught up in not wanting to do too much.
He was comfortable. He was too comfortable.
Who, Mayou?
Yeah, he was kind of like, he had to hit guys more. He had to deliver better checks, I think. He had to take guys out a little bit more. And you know what?
He was thinking too much.
Well,
I think it's just the thought process of not wanting to lose position to throw a hit, not wanting to lose position to score a goal, not wanting to throw the wrong pass at the wrong time and end up on the wrong side of the ledger. But when you see a guy who was one of the best rookies in the American Hockey League go down there and assert his game, which we know the abilities are there and the Canadians know the abilities are there. This is one of the main things that I actually learned in this camp, going to every practice and going to every scrimmage and going to every game. When you watched Mayou, Reinbacher, and Engstrom, there's almost the same conclusion you could form for all three players, that if they get 30 to 60 games in the American Hockey League to build up the confidence and play at that pro speed, which is not NHL speed, but it is pro speed and it is pro physicality, and just have that experience, which is why it's such a shame that Reinbacher got hurt long term. You're just going to see major growth in all three guys. Now it's going to be two for the next 6 months, and one you hope really grows off the ice in Reinbacher because of the situation he got put in.
Hutson starts with the Canadiens, Mayou starts with the Rocket, and I think the difference between the two players, and there's several though, is I think the processor was up to NHL speed for Hutson, and the processor was not up to NHL speed for Mayou. Like, we know he's got the athletic attributes, we know he's got the physical attributes, we know he's got the break shot, we know he can skate, but some of his reads, I thought sometimes it was a little bit too fast, and it's going to take just a little bit of getting used to before it becomes common for him.
I agree with you, but and again, it's going to look like a tough comparison because Lane Hutson is in a certain place already that not many players that age get to. Like, I just look at Mayou and think there were too many thoughts running through his. Take Emil Heineman as a really good example. Okay, last year Saw him at rookie camp. He looked really good. He's given an opportunity right out of the gate to play with Caulfield and Suzuki. He knows what they want to see from him. They know what they want to see from him. But there's just a lot of thinking going on. There's a lot of hesitation. There's a lot of processing in terms of the expectations. And now, a year later, you could debate a lot of things about this roster. You cannot debate the validity of Emil Heineman's place on it. Like, he absolutely earned his way here. And just the big adjustment, and Marty said it himself, it's not like he shoots harder, he skates faster, or this or that. He's just a year older and a bit more mature and has that and Heineman said himself,
yeah,
I'm not thinking out there. I'm going out and playing. Mayu got stuck in that paradigm. He had to think about what he was doing because he knew the knocks that were on him. He knew the knocks are that he tends to run out of position. He tends to make an odd pass, trying to make a big play. He tends to run out of position for a hit. He tends to try and make a big rush down the ice and make something happen out of nothing instead of letting the game come to him. And his knowledge of all that, speaking with us and being asked about it, it makes you think on the ice versus react. And going to the American Hockey League is going to enable him to get back to his game of just reacting. The confidence will swell. He will be back here. There will be an injury. There will be an opportunity. Maybe somebody won't be playing as well and he'll get his chance.
Yeah.
When he comes back, he's going to look like a much more assertive player, much like Emil Heineman looks like right now.
Step into the world-renowned poker experience at Playground, where free food and drinks, a cash game tables, a bad beat jackpot that's over $2.1 million, weekly promotions, daily tournaments, unmatched customer service await you. Why play anywhere else? Just minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground across from the Mercier Bridge. Once again, it's Playground. Also, shout out to another one of our partners, and that is Accent Insurance Solutions. And all insurance isn't created equal, and you know where to find the right solution for you. Accent Insurance. Accent doesn't sell insurance. They shop insurance for you to find the right product right on the money. Whatever your insurance needs, home, automobile, or business, you can jot down this number and give them a call tomorrow. The number is 514-363-3636. Visit their website, accentassurance.com. All right, okay. Speaking of Emil Heineman, and you talked about the lines. Well, we're able to take a little snapshot of the lines that you tweeted earlier this morning. Let's bring them up, and here you have it. Suzuki with Slavkovsky and Caulfield, Doc with Armia and Newhook, Dvorak with Anderson and Barré-Boulet, Evans, Gallagher, and Heineman. Looks like Kapanen and Pizzetta could be the extras there for the game versus Toronto. We'll see what happens. Matheson, Gooley, Hutson, Savard, Jacki, Barron. It was a therapy day for Jaden Struble, we must say. Montembeault and Primo. Let's keep this up if we can. You look at these lines. You talked about Heineman on a line with Evans and Gallagher. Everyone has a different interpretation of what they would like to have from a quote-unquote fourth line. Some coaches like to go with an energy line. Some coaches would like to go with a line that, will be strong on the forecheck and can recover pucks. Some like to go with a very big physical line or, that it can dominate the boards or that can deliver a hit and change the momentum of a hockey game. What's the identity of the Canadiens' fourth line for you with Evans, Gallagher, and Heineman?
Oh man, you're not going to like my answer because I don't see it as a fourth line. I don't see any distinguishment between the third and fourth line as they're listed here. Like, to me, it's the bottom six, and there's no difference one way or the other. But if you're asking for the identity of that line, Evans, Gallagher, and Heineman, they're clearly a hard forechecking line that is going to be hard to play against. They're all three guys who are willing to play putting their bodies on the line, and they're all three guys that can cycle the puck. And there could be more scoring on this line than if somebody else were filling that third spot other than Heineman. I think it's got potential. Like, I don't know if it's set in stone. I don't think anything in this picture really is. Aside from, not even the first line, actually.
Really?
Yeah, really. Like, they have to start together. Let's face it. They have to start together. But if Newhook, Doc, and Armia aren't able to support them with secondary scoring, or, you look up and down this lineup and the chances come, but the goals don't.
Yeah.
there's only so long they're going to be able to keep that together. And I think
true, fair enough. I've never liked the whole ideology of breaking something that fixed to get something else going. Now, like we'll see where they stand.
But like,
this
what
year.
happens on the road? You look at this picture at home against Toronto, I don't see an issue. You look at it on the road against Boston the following night, and the Bruins will circle that top line and say, we worry about this, we finish that off, and we win this game.
Yeah, but they could have said the same thing last year when the Canadiens had so many injuries on the second line. Doc was out last year. Dvorak was out last year. Newhook was out last year. But yet the Canadiens kept the number one line together. But everyone could have said the same thing.
But let me ask you a question, though.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have Doc last year.
Correct. He was out as of game 2, fourth period.
If they hit the road, maybe they don't do it in the first week of the season, but maybe 2 weeks from now they're on a road trip through Pittsburgh and Washington, and they see a hard matchup coming their way, and they decide, you know what? We're going to put Slavkovsky with Doc tonight. We're going to put Newhook with Caulfield and Suzuki.
Okay.
Do they not have two lines that are something that the other team has to worry about more than the way you see it right now in this picture?
So, yes. I'll say yes, but I'll tell you that what you just said to me, I wouldn't like those lines to play on the road, though. Like, Caulfield needs a big presence like a Suzuki, I think, to insulate him.
Like Slavkovsky, mean?
It's like Slavkovsky.
Okay, so hang on. I'm happy you said it.
I think he's a perfect complement to the line. I mean,
say you leave Slav where he is.
Yeah.
And say Newhook and Caulfield switch places. And Caulfield ends up with Doc and Armia, who's a big body also.
I could see that.
I'm just saying, like, this pick, and this comes back to the original point.
I also like the fact that Doc is a righty like Suzuki, so the right-handed shot over to Caulfield, who's a right-handed shot, who will, he'll be on the off wing. Yeah, I like that.
Listen, I don't think Marty is going to get to this anytime soon. I think if he makes any tweaks, you'll see Slavkovsky with Doc. I really like the idea of Caulfield playing with Doc, and I'll tell you why. I think as soon as Slavkovsky joined that line, you saw Caulfield become a bit more of a playmaker because he had to be one. There was just different diversity on that line and different way of that line operating. And whereas before we saw Suzuki always deferring to Caulfield, Slavkovsky started to become a deferral a lot for both players because they could put the puck in his corner, let him do what he's got to do to create space for them, and then they could play their game. I like the idea of Caulfield joining Doc, and he becomes a guy who touches the puck a fair amount more than he would on that first line and ends up being the go-to scoring option on that line, especially in Laine's absence. We'll see where it goes. But the point is, everyone who looks at these lines and analyzes them to the death, which I have total respect for because you're Canadiens fans and you love the team and you're going to analyze every single thing that happens with the team.
Yeah.
None of it. It's not Joshua Waugh going to Laval, not Hutson being on the second power play unit, not Mike Matheson being at the top of the first, not Kapanen being out of the first regular season game. None of it is set in stone. This lineup, the way it is constructed, and if it is going to do what the Canadiens hope, which is push it to a level that they are in the mix throughout the season and perhaps giving themselves a chance to make a real push for the playoffs using Laine as essentially like a trade deadline acquisition, depends on a lot of these things moving around as the season goes along. It just depends on it. The Canadiens are not a bunch of individual guys who will bring them to that level. They have to be the sum of their parts. And the only way you're going to get the best version of the sum of their parts with respect to stability of lines is by mixing things up as you go along and making sure that, as Marty St. Louis, you have that gut feeling and go with it when the time calls for it and don't hesitate.
Now, Betway is a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go on Betway.com or scan the QR code to join the action. Must be 18 years old and over and play responsibly. Now, if you have to put $1 down on the amount of points the Montreal Canadiens will pick up this year, season starts once again on Wednesday night. They had 76 points last year. How much of an improvement do you, as you look into your crystal ball, do you see this year?
All right, full disclosure. Our Sportsnet predictions come out and I made 2 of them on there. And I don't know if people heard me on the 32 Thoughts podcast saying that I wasn't sure about whether or not the Canadiens would make the playoffs. The one thing that I was willing to bet on, or at least say as a prediction, was that I think they'll finish higher than the Ottawa Senators in the standings.
Whoa, can I give you a prediction?
Sure.
Cole Caulfield to lead the Canadiens in scoring with 35 goals.
I think he'll score more.
Wow.
But in my Sportsnet predictions, because we're asked to be bold, and to be honest with you, I have no problem with people calling me an absolute idiot for saying this. And then at the end, if I end up being right, I could call all of them idiots. But I have the Canadiens making the playoffs. And I have Marty St. Louis winning the Jack Adams. And I'm going to admit right now, it is a wacky, bold prediction, the type that we are asked for. It wouldn't totally shock me, though.
So hold on a second.
I'm not saying it's likely, but it wouldn't totally shock me.
Let me get this straight. We're going to have fun here. So you're on 2 podcasts, this one and 32 Thoughts.
Yeah. I gave them the meek answer.
With Elliot and Kyle. And you told them that you weren't certain that the Canadiens were going to make the playoffs.
I didn't know the roster.
But on this one, you're going to. When was this exactly?
It was yesterday. I didn't know the exact final roster before I was going to make my final call.
What difference does that make? What does that mean? What are you telling me?
Just buying myself some leeway here. So, I know people are going to jump all over me for this. It's okay.
So you told them
that's the fun of it.
You weren't sure if the Canadiens were going to make the playoffs, but 24 hours later, you tell me that they're going to make the playoffs and Marty St. Louis is going to win Coach of the Year.
Because that's what it's going to say in our Sportsnet.ca predictions.
Got it.
And
you forgot to say
everyone's going to jump all over me. They're probably going to be right. But if I end up being right, I'll be the only one who said it.
So is that why you said it? You forgot to say that Josh Anderson is going to win the Rocket Richard Trophy, by the way.
In full transparency.
That was a joke.
I'm not betting on it, but it wouldn't surprise me.
So
I'm predicting it. I'm not betting on it.
So
but it wouldn't surprise me.
So if Patrick Laine wouldn't have got hurt and he would have been able to rediscover some of that magic he had several seasons ago and probably played to 75 to 80% of his potential, which in terms would have made the Montreal Canadiens power play a lot better. I would have been comfortable to say that the Canadiens would not only have been in the mix, but if they would have got in, I really wouldn't have been shocked at all, because there are some teams that made the playoffs that, in my opinion, have dipped. Carolina's one. Pittsburgh is another. Washington is another.
The Islanders.
And I don't think the Islanders are stronger than the Canadiens personally.
How do you feel about Tampa?
Tampa, they lost Steven Stamkos, who scores 40 goals every year. And he obviously knew how to play in that system. And they lost Sergachev, who's a beast. But Sergachev was hurt for a lot last year as well. And so was Vasilevsky. Vasilevsky's now healthy. And they got Jake Gensel. And they got Moser on defense. And I wouldn't be I think Tampa will still be there. To answer your question,
I think Ottawa's going to make playoffs.
I think no, I don't.
A lot of people think Ottawa's going to make playoffs.
Yeah, I think.
Everyone keeps bringing up Allmark.
I get it. So he's the best goalie they've had in a long time.
Still has to play behind that defense, but he's good.
He could be the difference maker. But I think Ottawa and Buffalo have been teams that have been losing for a very, very long time. And unless there's a huge culture change that happens with either of them, I think they're probably still going to lose for quite a while.
Just so people are clear, I'm not delusional. The Canadiens are not a playoff team on paper. There's no question about it.
On paper, they are not. No.
They're just not.
No.
But a lot of things need to go right. I believe they're a really close group. And we've seen teams like this really surprise a lot of other teams. And it's okay. I know in the end, probably going to be wrong about these predictions, but I'm willing to make them.
Yeah, that's
same way I was willing to argue with you about Josh Anderson, Mike Matheson.
That was fun, by the way. We can't always agree, but I'll make a couple of crazy predictions. But there's a big if though. If Lane Hutson plays all of the games or most of the games, he's going to be top 3 for the Calder.
I definitely agree.
Him, Macklin Celebrini, and Cutter Gauthier.
Maybe. We'll see what Michkov has to say about that. We'll see about some other players. Seamus Casey is the guy who's making a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Jersey. We'll see. It's going to be a great rookie class, man. Let me ask you a question.
Michkov has me intrigued.
These are predictions now that Line is out. What do you expect from Kirby Dach this year? This could fuel your entire radio show tomorrow.
50 points.
50?
Yeah.
Anything less is a disappointment?
For me, yes.
So you believe in Kirby?
Well, I do, yes, but he's got to start putting it together now. Like, some will say that as long as he doesn't get injured this year, I mean, that's already the big accomplishment. But if he's going to be the second line centerman that they see in him, and they want to start putting together a competitive team going forward with Suzuki at center and with Kirby Dach at center, Dach's going to have to hit at least 50 this year. I think he's going to have to take 2 steps forward and hit 50 this year, because or else, if he's not going to be able to, they're going to have to probably consider putting him on the wing.
Well, listen, if he could do that, at the very least, you're saying he's got to hit at least 50. If he could do that with Alex Newhook, Yoel Armia, probably a rotating cast of wingers, because that line is not going to be a line for the entire season, we might be, some people who are really doubting Kirby Dach better be singing a different tune.
Yeah, well, some people are doubting him, and I believe in him, but I don't believe, some people believe actually that he's the number 1 centerman in the making, and with all due respect, I don't believe that. I know that he was drafted 3rd, and Suzuki was drafted 13, but you take a look at their track records and where they played junior hockey, and Dach played in the WHL and Suzuki played in the OHL. Take a look at the seasons that Suzuki put up. He was always a better point producer than Kirby Dach.
Listen, Kirby's coming off a hell of an injury to try and put it all together this year, but I can't, I really believe he'll take a step towards proving that he could be a very similar player to Nick Suzuki. And if you had the 2 of them as your 1-2 punch, it mitigates the fact that you don't have an Austin Matthews or a Connor McDavid or this or that. Like, if you have 2 guys that are as good as Nick Suzuki, I think you're fine.
I'd be happy with Kirby Dach picking up, 21 goals, 50 points, a goal every 4 games.
I mean, I think that would be a really strong season considering who he's playing with. Like, no matter how you slice the lines, as long as Line is out, that would be a good season for Kirby Dach.
Hey, why don't we do this can we take 5 questions?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Not before I basically give a shout out to Paul Montreal, by the way. Paul Montreal, Dr. Manish Khanna, he has a game changer for hair loss. It's called TED technology. It's an ultrasound technology to boost blood flow to your scalp, getting those hair follicles back in action. So I'm sure you've heard of PRP before, where they actually inject you with your own blood and all that stuff. Well, that's invasive. It's injections. This is all natural. No needles, no pain. And it's got a 98% success rate for ideal candidates. P-E-A-U, Montreal.com. For more information, they have 2 locations, downtown Montreal and on the West Island, and they'll give you a free consultation. Jot down this number. You can give them a call tomorrow, 514-989-7328. All right. With Shane Gaumont back at Master Control. Shane, if you could throw 5 questions there, we'll answer. Well, Eric will answer them. I'll take a break. It's been a very long day. Neil says to Eric, what's everyone's thoughts on Galley playing 4th line but getting second wave power play?
My thoughts on Galley, where he slots in the lineup and his role on the power play is, I don't think those things are connected. His role on the power play is to stand in front of the net and make it difficult on the opposing goalie. And that's something he's always been good at in his career. Power play, 5-on-5.
Deflecting pucks.
Whatever situation you want to look at, right?
Yeah.
That's the one place on the power play where he has the opportunity to do that regularly. As Marty says, if it was up to Gallagher on every shift, he'd be able to get to the front of the net and be able to create a scoring chance right in front of there. But the game doesn't give you that every time. Sometimes somebody's ahead of you on the forecheck. Sometimes somebody's arriving at the net and you've got to go to the side boards. But on the power play, that opportunity is there for Gallagher to do what he has always done. So I like the opportunity that's being given to him, but like every other opportunity that's being given in this camp and to these players, it's temporary. It has to be earned on a daily basis, and they have enough players to make it a competition, no matter how their second power play unit looks at the moment.
4 more for Eric. Ashley, Montreal needs a big physical fourth line and needs a Matthew Olivier or a Nick Delorier or a Matt Martin. Habs have a lot of young players, and Arbor can't always look after everyone on his own. Eric?
I like those guys a lot. Do I think that they're all that different than Michael Pezzetta? Not really. I think Mike Pezzetta can actually play the game a bit more than those players being mentioned, even if he's not in their class as a heavyweight in the league. That said, he's heavy, he's willing, he's fought with some of the hardest players in the league, including Ryan Reeves, who's coming to town on Wednesday. It is something that, no matter how you look at it, and I agree with Ashley on one thing, like, these players still matter in the game. They still matter in the game, and but I don't think the Canadiens feel like they don't have enough toughness and enough willingness. Tony, you might disagree based on our whole discourse on Josh Anderson earlier, but I think the Canadiens have enough players that are willing to stand up for each other. And I would add Jaden Struble to that mix, because honestly, players who don't know and try to test him are going to find out.
He's a beast, and it's all starting to come together, and he's starting to get that confidence because he's been in the league now. So he was able to break the ice. I think the Canadiens were looking for that pack mentality. I think it wasn't there in the preseason. I think it was a wake-up call. I think they discussed it in Tremblant, and I think you're going to see a lot better pack mentality than the lack thereof that we saw for those 3 preseason games. 3 more. Eric Lavallee. What are the chances that Dobesh replaces Primo midway through this season?
Really minimal. Like, it would take it would take Primo completely faltering for that to happen. And I'm sorry, but judging his preseason, like, let's just wait till the games actually start and matter. Like, one of the games he came in halfway through and allowed a bad goal, like, to Nick Robertson. Okay. So all of a sudden he's in bad shape. Dobish played a phenomenal game in Toronto. He deserves full credit for that. But I believe in Caden Primo. I've said that before, and I'll say it again. I think he's a good goalie. I think this is a big year for him to really push Sam Montembeault. And we'll see what it gives. But if you're asking me right now what the chances are that he's supplanted by Jakub Dobish halfway through the season, I'd put it at like less than 5% right now.
I say if they both continue the way they did in the preseason into the regular season, I think it's a possibility. But obviously,
in the middle of the year,
the Canadiens want to have as much NHL experience backing up Montembeault as possible. So in an ideal situation, if it's not going to be Primo, it would be somebody else with more experience.
If Primo falters, through the first quarter of the season and they feel that they need an upgrade in there, I'd be really surprised if it was Jakub Dobish. I'd be really surprised if it wasn't somebody else from a National Hockey League goal.
So, 2 more.
Yeah.
Giovanni Maiolo. What do you think of Jake Evans' future at the trade deadline?
I think it's premature to answer right now. We're going to find out just how valuable Jake Evans is to the Canadiens in the here and now and in the future. Because, look, they are headed to a place where they're going to be expected to win. And they're not as far off as people might assume looking at their roster right now. And I know this. There's not a lot of teams that are contenders in the league that count on 22-year-old players to be their fourth-line checking center. Like, I love what Owen Beck is becoming and what type of player he's going to be. I think he has higher potential than as a fourth-line center. I still think he's probably going to have to start in the league at that position. And the reality is that depending on what the Canadiens' window is, signing a guy like Jake Evans for 2 to 3 years could prove to be a good move for them, especially with what he contributes on the penalty kill. And I don't think they'd be, I think the market might pay more for Evans than the Canadiens would be willing to if they did that. But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't be able to convince him to stay. So it's hard to answer. I don't want to blow off the question. It's a little premature to get into what the future holds for Evans at the trade deadline. If you were looking at it purely from a asset management standpoint, if the Canadiens are out of the playoffs and Evans isn't making much of a difference or doesn't show that potential to continue making one in the future the way he has at certain points, then it's likely he'll be traded. But I think it's way premature to even go down there.
I think in the next couple of years, Owen Beck will be centering a line for the Canadiens and Oliver Kapanen will be centering a line for the Canadiens too. But that doesn't mean that Jake Evans won't be on the team. Look, I think he's a fourth liner, but I actually think he's probably better than some people think. But I think in Evans' case, and I know this is an easy answer, I think it's kind of like one of those 50-50 deals. I mean, I don't think they've decided. I don't think when they look into their crystal ball, they say, you know what, this guy's going to be here or he's going to be gone. I think it's going to all decide on how he's going to play. And
I think he's a really well-liked player in this room.
Yeah.
Kind of a part of the glue of the room. And
him and Anderson.
Than people give him credit for.
Him and Anderson. Why don't we take one more?
Last one.
Wild Coyote. At least we had fun with it, though. You have to admit. If Habs are staying in the mix without Liney, are the Habs going to be aggressive to add to the lineup, or do we just see the team go as is?
Oh man.
Well, if they're in the mix, they're going to try and make the playoffs, right?
They're in the mix. They're going to try and make the playoffs. Are they
That's
going to try to make them at all costs? No. They're not going to start sacrificing key elements of the future prospects just to go for a little playoff push here. And they have a built-in excuse with Line out for the first 2 to 3 months of the season, right? That if they're in the mix before Line comes back, it's like their trade deadline edition comes in right there when he comes in. Now, if they can bolster that a little bit with a piece or two that they don't have to give up a first-round pick or a top prospect for, I don't see them hesitating to do that. If it's a second-round pick or a B-level prospect or even a decent prospect, but one that doesn't have necessarily a future with them based on how their organizational depth chart lines up, they'll consider it, and they'll have to make a decision at that point. But they have a perfect reason to kind of wait and see.
Yeah.
And if they're competitive without Line, all of a sudden Line comes back. And boom, it's like the boost that you would get making a trade for a real player.
Yeah. By the way, we talked about centerman. Wouldn't be at all surprised if Michael Hage will be centering a Montreal Canadiens line within the next couple of years as well. He obviously got out to a great start to his collegiate career with Michigan. 2 games, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points.
Man, does that kid look good.
It's the way he scored that goal. It's the way he set up. They're all primary assists, by the way. The way he set them up, my God, he looked absolutely unbelievable.
All highlights.
Look, you don't make a career on a couple of highlights and at the collegiate level, but when you talk about players that could end up being steals, at 21, they probably found themselves a real dandy here. They probably found themselves a real dandy.
It makes you wonder, like, between Hage, Kapanen, and Beck, and Doc, is there space for all of them here in Montreal?
It makes you wonder, but Hage, Doc, and Kapanen, can play both, right?
Who's going to end up on the wing? It's going to be interesting for them, but it also just, I say it makes you wonder just because, like all teams that get into their contention window, there is a point where you start to look at guys who can help you, and can help you now and in the future, and you say, we have a chance to upgrade at a different position, and we're going to move this player even though we like him and we love him. There's just some of those decisions they're not coming right now.
Yeah.
They are coming. Like, and that's when this stuff starts to become hard, you know?
Eric, always great content. And as an added bonus tonight, 30 seconds of fireworks. 30 seconds. It wasn't more than that, right? It was 30 seconds.
That was pretty good.
It wasn't more than that. 30 seconds. All good. Hey, fantastic. And enjoy the next couple of days because you know what? Hockey's back. And,
Tony, I heard 30 seconds of fireworks is your specialty.
Whoa! Low blow. Who told you that, Eric?
Can't reveal my sources.
All right. Quality, son. Quality over quantity, son. Quality. You know. Quality. I don't know what to say. You found me speechless now.
It's okay. I'm gonna get buried with my predictions that I made on here and at sportsnet.ca, and I'm looking forward to it. All the Sens fans are already after me for saying on 32 Thoughts the Canadiens are going to finish above them. Like, okay. We'll see, Senators. We'll see what the Senators have in store for us this year.
Eric, who cares? What's the worst that can happen? A bad prediction?
I'll be wrong. It's okay.
What's the worst that's you're gonna be wrong? What's the worst that can happen? Hey, what's the worst? You're not gonna lose your job. At least I would hope not. Right?
No. Especially since my playoff predictions always come true.
Your playoff predictions are good, yeah?
They're pretty good.
Okay.
Although I missed on Edmonton last year. I had Dallas and Florida in the final with Florida winning.
I had Florida winning too last year to tell you.
But let's face it, Dallas should have beat Edmonton. They just ran out of gas.
Dallas should have beat Edmonton. I agree with you, yes. Yeah. Okay, who's going to win the Cup this year?
Oh, my God. Dallas.
Going back with Dallas? Yeah, Dallas, yeah.
Yeah, Dallas is going to win the Cup this year.
That would be – I'd like to see Dallas win the Cup.
Yeah, I think – oh, man, I hope I have Dallas over New York.
Rangers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rangers over New York is my prediction.
Rangers got a good team. Eric, awesome stuff. We'll talk to you soon, bud. Take care.
All right, take care.
All right, there you have it. Eric Engels, sportsnet.ca. Marinaro, special thanks to, of course, all of our sponsors, whether it's Energy Transportation Group, Bittt, Tibi, Playground, Accent Insurance Solutions, and Betway. We want to thank them very, very much for all of their support. We are very, very grateful. Want to thank all of you for watching as well. If you like to comment, SICK, share with your friends. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place. The Sick Podcast, weeknights at 10 p.m. And once again, the Montreal Canadiens will host the Toronto Maple Leafs on Wednesday night. That's when they open up their season. We'll be back tomorrow night. Have a good one. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.